ICQ Podcast, episode 423, the Canvey Island Rally. Well, hello and welcome, fellow amateur radio enthusiasts, to this, our 423rd episode of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, supported by our monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode, we join Martin M1MRB, Chris Mike Zero Tango Charlie Hotel, Martin Mike Zero Sierra Golf Lima, Frank K4 Foxtrot Mike Hotel, Bill Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, and Leslie Golf Zero Charlie India Bravo to discuss latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin M6BRY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is the Canvey Island Rally. Now, we'd love to show our love and appreciation to our kind listeners who support your ICQ podcast, helping us pay our bills and keeping us advert-free. And with Valentine's Day coming up, please show your love for the ICQ podcast by visiting icqpodcast.com/donate, where we ask you a very simple premise of the value you get for the show, turn it into a monetary amount, and send it along our way. And everything you send us goes back into your show. Right, now we're going to join Martin, Chris, Martin, Frank, Bill and Leslie to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including a stolen radio tower and the first radio station on the moon. As always, hope you enjoy.
Hi guys, and welcome to the News Roundtable for ICQ Podcast, episode 432. Tonight, I've got Mr. Chris Howell with me, M0TCH. Hi Chris.
Hi Martin, hi guys.
Hiya. I also have Mr. Martin Rothwell, M0SGL, who may or may not get me into trouble.
Well, I've seen the news stories. We know what's coming up.
All signs point to yes, that's all I'm saying. Magic 8 Ball says that, yes.
That's what I'm working on.
Moving to the side of the pond, we got Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH. Hi, Frank.
Hey, Martin. Hey, everybody. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. Also, your side of the pond, we've got Mr. Bill Barnes, WC3B. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Martin. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. And last but not least, he's with us again. It's our Leslie. Mr. Leslie
Good evening, Martin.
Good evening, Leslie.
Just survived the good job. We never publish the previews on this, isn't it? Really.
It's
Well,
don't worry, Leslie.
Yeah, we're polite, Leslie. We have a clean rating. But Mr. Leslie Butterfields, G0CIB. They're good to have you, Leslie.
Hey, hang on, Martin. I think we've got a moneymaker here. We could put the non-clean version out as a pay-per-view, and people could download this the off-air chat.
Oh, yeah.
It could be a thing. It could be a thing.
Vito.
We probably need to get some lawyers.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I couldn't handle earning too much money. Anyway.
What I'm paying you currently.
Oh, dear, never mind. Let's be
Everyone should know that when you become a podcaster, you take a vow of poverty.
Yeah.
Poverty, yeah.
16 years I've had this vow. Well, almost, anyway.
That's what I always say, ham radio. Ham stands for had a lot of money. Also, had a lot of money. After get licensed.
Yeah. All right, come on, let's get started. First news story. Alabama radio station owner reports a 200-foot tower stolen. I thought the tower had gone, but Frank, you said it's not quite. But Frank, do you want to go first on this one?
Sure, and this one was quite unusual. We've had some vandalism stories in the past, and we've covered those where it was a bit unique. This is the clear definition of the news when it's not news when a dog bites a postal carrier, but when a postal carrier bites a dog, it's news. Who steals a 200-foot tower? Well, in Jasper, Alabama, which is a rural area, a landscaping crew showed up to do their job of cleaning the weeds and doing some trim work. That's a very common thing. But the tower was missing and the building was vandalized. The structure was completely gone. Structure of the tower. So Wow, what an interesting call the Jasper Police Department may have gotten. Desk Sergeant, my 200-foot tower is missing. So I'll leave it to the other presenters to talk a bit about that. But WJLX in Jasper posted it for all the world to see. And I guess it's one of the stations of the Payne Media Group that owns the thing. And what a thing to happen to them.
Yeah, I mean, I got visions, Frank, of this 200-foot tower chopped up into sections, put on a semi-rigid truck and trundled down the road. And you're thinking, look, it would be such a rare sight. It would be obvious it was stolen by every police car up and down the road from here to God knows where. But they obviously things happen. Bill, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I read that and couldn't believe it either on the story. But I actually hung up on the second part of the article, where earlier someone cut down a tower near the Oklahoma-Texas border and just took the feed line. And they actually arrested 2 folks that were trying to sell the feed line at a scrapyard.
Bill, I want to add this. That is in Paris, Texas. Is there any other ham radio business we know in Paris?
That's what I was wondering. Did they take it into Main Trading Company? Trying to sell hardline. I don't know. I'm sure Lenore would have sent something out in the newsletter for those that don't get
he says he trades for anything, alive or dead. So
that's what I was just getting ready to say. For those that don't get the Main Trading Company newsletter, the owner, Lenore, and this is true, by the way, because I've traded in equipment with him before. He will take just about everything for trade. Computer equipment and scanners and
he claims he took a goat in trade once. I'll leave it with him on that one.
Yeah, I remember reading that. But anyway, I'm glad they arrested these 2 folks, and they're still working on the court system here on those 2. But both of these crimes, they actually boggle my mind, because it's like, here's a property, and you cut the guy wire, and the tower collapses. Just the amount of danger in that alone, it's just mind-boggling that anybody would think that would be worth the effort to get $100 worth of copper out of. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, well, copper is quite expensive, Bill, in fairness. So in the UK, if you take any scrap metal to a scrap metal dealer and you've got anything in any quantity, especially wire, they want proof of who you are and all sorts of things. So, yeah, it's become a bit more challenging over here to even get rid of your own stuff. Martin, what's your thoughts as you work in broadcast occasionally?
Well, it's 200 foot, 61 meters worth of sort of radio tower that they tried to nick or destroyed the tower from. The thing that gets me is, like, no one noticed it until the following morning. There was no one in the station monitoring the off-air signal. For starters, if you're on a live radio station, you listen to the off-air signal when the microphones are shut. Let's assume that maybe you're pre-recorded. Don't get me started on pre-recorded radio. Did they not get any calls? Was no one listening to this? If you should have a receiver on every frequency, like during your ad break, you listen to every single frequency just to make sure the transmitters are there. Even if you're completely automated, what about your silence detector? Again, every transmitter should be connected to a silence detector. If it detects silence on the air because the transmitter has gone off for whatever reason, 1, it will try and put the audio back on or restart the transmitter. 2, that silence detector calls home. It calls your engineer, it calls the studio, and it says, hey, you've got silence. You need to do something about this. That's absolute basic. So the fact that they didn't do that. But the other thing they get with, this was like a 50,000 watt station. I mean, you're taking copper from a live transmitter running 50,000 watts? Our stations in the UK, FM stations run about 4 to 10 kilowatts, depending on where they are in the UK. 50,000 watts, that's crazy. These people must be stupid or love RF burns.
Well, Darwin might have been right if they, they got caught anyway. But yeah, Chris, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's a bit careless, isn't it? 200-foot tower, wasn't it? To lose that's a bit careless. But no, I think there's been a few good points made about safety and certainly monitoring. I mean, I work in IT. I know a few of the guys on the podcast do that. We have extensive monitoring systems that would, pick up a fault or pick up if something wasn't working. So I am a bit surprised, as Martin was saying, there isn't some kind of system in place. Having no output would be a bit of a critical issue. So I think, yeah, perhaps that's a lesson learned for the station and other stations is to perhaps monitor what's going on. You might actually manage to catch the guys in the act. I know they were caught afterwards, but I guess it's a lot of damage caused, etc. So yeah, I don't know what the long term situation is, whether they're going to have to rebuild the tower or what. But I imagine it's going to off the air for quite some time, and certainly in that area anyway.
Chris, let me add to this. I looked up some of the news coverage, and there was a nice local news cover. The tower in question is an AM 1 kilowatt station, and they have an FM translator. We talked in our preview a little bit about maybe there was some simulcasting. So they're continuing to broadcast on their lower power FM. 200 feet is 200 feet, regardless of what power is in it. But just to add that to the story. There you go. And not to defend them, Martin Rothwell, because I'm totally there with you about the monitoring. The bean counters have made their mark on stations, particularly in the AM sector where profits have declined a good bit. They may have been monitoring their FM translator and may have not known it. Just a thought.
Maybe. I thought I saw 50,000 watts. Maybe
There's
I've read
2 stories.
Either way, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to go fiddling with the wrong thing. Leslie, have we left you anything to say on this one?
I just had visions of Rodney and Del Boy and Rodney Trotter turning up in their Robin Reliant with a couple of hacksaws each, hacking this mast down.
The chandelier they cut. It's like the chandelier they cut down the wrong tower.
Yeah, that's the one. So, but anyway, you're going to get caught. We had this type of thing on the railways, people nicking copper wire from the railway lines, and they get caught and they come up before the equivalent there, the local magistrate or the local sheriff, whatever, and it's like the game of Monopoly. They get a card that says, go to jail, go straight to jail, don't pass go. I think it's exactly where they're going.
Yeah, certainly is. And as I say, hopefully, well, they didn't know how much power was going up that mast and were stupid enough to cut it.
And for those folks that didn't quite guess, references from, especially those not in the UK, from Leslie there, it's look up a program called Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah, I'm being a bit of a Brit there.
Yeah, no problems at all. Okay, move to our next news story. First amateur radio station on the moon. I think is now transmitting. Bill, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, this is very exciting. The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency successfully landed their smart lander for investigating the moon. They abbreviated it SLIM on January 19th, 2024. And just before touchdown, they released 2 probes. One's going to collect data on the surface. The other one's going to receive the data. But interestingly enough, it's been transmitting on 437.41 megahertz since January 19th. It's a 1 watt UHF antenna with circular polarization pointing back at us. I haven't been able to copy this signal yet. However, it's not survived. Well, it's going to go into lunar night here soon, and that should drain the batteries all the way. So if you want to hear this unique station, you want to start listening to 437.41 and point your antenna towards the moon and see if you can copy the Morse code signal. We have from when this article comes out, I believe we still have a little more time left before we get to new moon, and then that will be that. But I think this is This is one of the unique, interesting space missions out there. So I'm pretty excited about it, actually. So I keep trying to listen to it.
Yeah. It's first one on the moon, and I think that was quite good. Frank, you put the story up. Thoughts from yourself?
Yes, we have talked a bit about space travel and time and distance, for signals as we explore the cosmos out there, and with somewhat of a humorous tone. But we now have a signal on the moon, and in our preview, I joked with Bill that I wanted him to raise hell with ARL's entity counter to put the moon as a new DX entity. But I say that as much in jest as anything. But it is just very striking about what amateur radio does do, independent of what it can do. It can do a tremendous amount, but it's even amazing of what it does do. We, particularly here in America, I think, see ourselves as kind of the end-all be-all sometimes, certainly if you read QST magazine. But Japan has done tremendous work in amateur radio. I don't think over here in the U.S. we give Japan quite as much prestige, as maybe they should have. So good on them for doing this. I hope it's the start of many that we'll have linked repeaters from the Earth to Moon to Mars or wherever we tend to populate in years ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one there. Leslie, I know you don't do you don't do much VHF and UHF, and I know you don't do space stuff, but this has got to be interesting, isn't it?
It is an interesting story, Martin. Yeah, it's good. I'm going to see if I can receive it because I've got some UHF equipment knocking about somewhere. Yeah, just let's have a go and see if we can work it before it goes off the air.
Yeah, well, I don't know if when it comes round out into the sun again, if it's got solar panels, it might recharge the batteries if we're lucky. But
worth a try.
Worth a try, yeah. Yeah, worth a try. Martin, what's your thoughts on this one?
It's interesting. I'm curious as to say it's because it's transmitting matters related to amateur business, which is very, very vague. I'd be interested to see what they are. I mean, maybe it's forthcoming things that could come in the future. I wonder about some kind of transponder or digipeater would be interesting out there. I'm curious what it says though. It's not designed to last a lunar night, which can last for up to 14 days. Now, is that as in the batteries are not designed to last a lunar night, in which case we have to wait for a lunar day for the batteries to charge up, and then the thing to come back online, or overall, in which case that seems a very expensive thing to do for very little gain. But either way, 437.41, I have a circular polarized antenna for UHF. It's not up, but it's got an N-type plug on the end, but I could certainly plug it in. I just need to work out how to decode the data, I guess, whatever's coming off of it.
Well, once you've received it, you can record it, can't you? And then go back and decode it later, obviously. But yeah, and I suppose even if it is only for a few days up there, the kudos is this is the first time anybody's done it. So our Japanese colleagues must be sitting there with a big smile on their face. Chris, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's fantastic, and I'd love to actually receive this from the moon. I mean, the moon's it's a very long way away. So, I mean, it's great that I know the Japanese had this recent lunar expedition, and it's great that they've put this up there for us amateurs to try and pick up. I mean, it's great also that amateur radio still seems to have a connection with space, and it's a great way of promoting a hobby. Imagine doing a demonstration. Look, we've got this Morse code coming from the moon. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing to show, isn't it? So I think that might inspire people as well. So no, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. So all in all, a very interesting story that we can monitor, and I'm sure others will try. Now it's been done at least once. So good news, that one. Next news story. AMSAT makes a plea to keep Greencube in service. Now, as I understand it, this is a mid-Earth orbit satellite, and instead of switching it off, they want it left on because it has such a wide footprint. Martin, do you want to go first on this one?
Well, first thing is that why are they decommissioning it? Okay, if it's a commercial satellite and there's amateur payload on it, I get that commercial satellites come to the end of their economical life and maybe they want to turn off the commercial side of it, whatever it's doing. Equally, if it's a geostationary satellite, obviously it costs money. They have to effectively keep the bird in the box. They have teams of people, keep making sure that the satellites stay in the right place. They have computers and stuff on the ground that are doing that. But if it's just a satellite that is floating around the world like most of the amateur satellites that are out there, what's the benefit in turning it off? It's clearly not costing anything because it's solar powered, everything, it's not like you can just pop up and go and do some maintenance on it every now and again. It's there, you're never going to be able to do anything with it. If you want to turn off the commercial side of whatever this satellite is doing, then fine, just leave the power on and leave the amateur stuff on. I don't get really what they're trying to achieve.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Leslie, when we were talking earlier, and you said, there's a cost because you always have to have people available, and I said, why not give it to AMSAT? Bequeath it to AMSAT. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to speak to them and say, what's the reason why and why is this occurring? And if it is the cost, then take that job off their hands so there isn't a cost. Amateurs are well known for doing stuff in the hobby free, and if we can take the job off somebody else, why not?
Bill, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with other folks. I mean, it's nice that AMSAT made the offer. I haven't seen any follow-up yet from the S5 Labs. The actual primary mission of this thing is it's a medium Earth orbit greenhouse. So it actually has basically a plant experiment in there. So I'm assuming or guessing that the plant experiment is complete. And at that point, they were just going to, shut the thing off. And, maybe, I really hope that the company works with AMSAT to keep at least the amateur payload going for a while. Because it is a wide footprint satellite because it's medium Earth orbit. And the article does mention that this is the first satellite since 2004 when AMSAT Oscar 40 went offline that has a large footprint like this. So, and just so everyone knows, this is a digipeater. So this is not it's not a voice FM bird or a sideband linear bird. It's a digipeater. However, even the most recent de-expedition to Clipperton was using the digipeater to make some QSOs during the event while they were on the island. So it's still useful. It still has some useful life left in it, and we'll hopefully have a follow-up here in a couple weeks where things go well.
Yeah, let's hope they do go well, Bill. Let's hope they do. Chris, what's your thoughts?
Well, I can just kind of echo what the other guys have said, I suppose. I mean, we don't know what the costs are for this satellite being up there. Obviously, they're not going up there and you can't physically maintain something, but I don't know if there's any other costs about having something up in space. But even if there are, it may or may not be that they've given the option to an amateur radio association such as AMSAT to adopt it. So that being the case, I think that will be, something that we should be considered, I suppose. But ultimately, if I guess it's a privately owned thing, then it's up to the people that own it to do what they want with it, I suppose. It would be a shame, especially if it's, from what I think we've been said so far, this doesn't have any option to, because I think with satellites, once they go out of their useful service, they get essentially go into a trajectory to hit the Earth, or not the Earth, but the ionosphere around the Earth, or the atmosphere, and burns up. I don't think that's possible in this case. I think we've been told this doesn't have that facility, so it's just going to be there anyway. So it'd be a shame if someone's going to just remotely turn it off and it's just there anyway, that would be a real shame. If it's possible to leave it going for as long as possible and maybe have someone like AMSAT or someone similar to adopt it, I think that would be great. I don't know if that offer's been made already or not. I don't know, but yeah, like I say, a bit of a loss if it's just going to be switched off and left in space, I suppose.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? Frank, last words on this one?
Yes, I think the group has covered it very well. And I think there's some things we don't know, as we've acknowledged. We don't know if there is a terrestrial labor cost, if you've got something up in space, or there are things you have to do to monitor it and report on it and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know how that would change if you turn off the digipeater or decommission it. I don't know what the cradle to grave scenario is, if you will, for this. On the notion of AMSAT asking them to keep it on, I think that speaks very well of AMSAT. I continue to be puzzled about AMSAT and its viability of taking over such a thing. Now, AMSAT UK, from across the pond over here, AMSAT UK seems to be a little more vibrant in how it's managed and what it does. We've had controversy here over, as we have with ARL, over AMSAT's governance, and I don't quite understand how they choose to present themselves sometimes. For example, Robert Bankston, KE4AL, my neighbor in Alabama, who's been president for a few terms, as a life member, I've requested an interview just to promote satellite work in amateur radio for over 2 years here on the podcast. Just not interested, don't have time, etc. I even contacted Jeff, KE9V, their secretary, and he pretty much said, well, Bankston's who you need to talk to. So, and that's fine. I mean, I just am puzzled about how AMSAT operates and whether or not it would even be viable for them to take over such an entity, no matter how logical it seems to us. So I do hope that the company does keep it on, because as Bill articulated, it does some great stuff. Clipperton's just a recent example. So we will try to monitor this and find out. But if anybody has Robert Bankston, KE4AL's number, give him a call and say, the podcast over out of England would sure like to do a feature. Let's promote satellite radio.
Yeah, that's a good one, Frank. And if it's time difficult for him to talk to somebody in the UK, I know that you're probably the best person to your Bill, or one or both of you can talk to him, whichever wants to do it.
I'm in the same time zone, and I'm close enough to go over in person, Martin.
Well, that makes it easier, Frank. Yeah, that makes it easier. Let's put it that way. Okay, next news story. New SOTA group is growing for West Malaysia hams. Now, don't often hear of things happening too much abroad, but this is quite a nice one, because I know a number of us have had a go at SOTA. Mine is not particularly great, my work in SOTA, but I know, Chris, you've had a go. So what do you think on this one, Chris?
Yeah, I think any expansion to SOTA, I think, is great. It sounds like in West Malaysia, the association is starting to pick up some pace. So I think that's a great thing. It is a growing hobby. It's funny, I was chatting to a guy the other day on the radio, and it was a new licensee. I mentioned SOTA, and he seemed to be very keen on it. So no, I think it's a great way of getting out there and combining the hobby of walking up hills or mountains and operating a radio. So no, I think it's a good thing. And it's good that it's starting to spread into further parts of the world. I do like the way that you get a bonus. We get a bonus in the UK if you operate, I think, during the winter months. I think you get an extra point, I think, something like that. And likewise in Malaysia, you get extra points if you activate during the monsoon season. So or during other harsh weather conditions. So I think it's a good move.
Yeah, well, it's another one of these things. If you're doing something like SOTA, POTA, or some of the other things we do in our hobby, it's a reason to get out there and go and operate. So, I'm all for SOTA, obviously. Martin, what's your thoughts?
I'll be honest, I don't really have very much to add on this. I mean, a new SOTA group, great if it's growing. if it's your thing, you're in that area, obviously check it out. I like the comment Chris said about, operating during like monsoon season and getting different points of that. Yeah, I mean that's brave, but yeah, I guess amateur radio attracts all type. But yeah, if it's your thing, go check them out.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, let's see what happens. Now, Bill, you do a fair amount of SOTA, I believe. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I got slowed down last year because of my knee, but we're going to get back at it this year. But yeah, 373 new summits in West Malaysia. The interesting thing to me is how much this has really grown since it started in 2002. We blew past the 2022, 20th anniversary, and they did some stuff. If you were on the mailing list, there was a lot of activity weekends and stuff, which was nice. But this group's coming up now at a time when the bands are getting better and better. We may actually be able to work some of these folks when the conditions are right. Because like a little bit ago, I looked it up and it's like, yeah, SFI is 188 right now, AF5, KF1. Man, that's surf up conditions. The bands are open. Get on the radio and work these guys in Malaysia. This is awesome. And I will say this, I will add one thing on the monsoon season. Unless I have like the world's best waterproof tent, there is no way I'm taking the KX3 out there in monsoon season.
Yeah, that would cost you a fortune to get that KX3 damp, Bill. We have to obviously be sensible, but could be fun for the guys. Right. Frank, what's your thoughts on this one?
I'll echo Bill a great deal. I think we're at the point in the sunspot cycle that this could have some legs. And the thing about SOTA, I heard Bob Whitty, K0NR, who's a big SOTA-ite, talk a bit about that, particularly in the U.S. And this was on a Cycle 25 Zoom call on Saturday mornings. And he was talking about people think about SOTA in mountains. And mountains are relative, because if you get up in the big mountains, you could have hundreds of technically defined mountains. But the prominence of what is determined to be a mountain, we only have like one in Mississippi, maybe two. And our one is the second highest point altitude-wise in the state. But the highest, which is up in the northeast part of the state, doesn't officially meet a SOTA criteria because it's around some other higher peaks. So our listeners need to think about that as to where official SOTA entities are. But Malaysia and that part of the world, as we've covered in various emergency communication stories here, amateur radio has been growing in its public popularity. And I think this story just fits into that collective growth when you develop associations like West Malaysia SOTA Association. So I'm just enthusiastic that particularly in that part of the world, they are getting involved into the SOTA activity. I'm looking at Ham Clock right now to pick up on Bill. I'm showing on that feed source SFI about 190, but the sunspot number for today is about 164 and a K of 1. This has varied as much as 100 sunspot points over a 30-day period. So it's like playing golf. The hottest days you may not want to play because your distance will be lowered because of the humidity. And I realize I'm speaking across the pond to where golf was invented. Hi. But the point is, you need to think about those conditions. And if there are people who are in the SOTA software and website that says they're on, let's go chase them. Let's be good stewards of what they're doing over in the West Malaysian region with SOTA. I just think it's terribly exciting.
Yeah, oh yes. Well, I remember when I was out in the States in 2019, I can't tell you where it was because Colin and I stayed in the restaurant and Chris drove Ed and Edmund to this summit. And in fairness, the whole land round where we were looked flat. I joked with them, did they climb a grain tower? Did they have to try big tick? But yeah, anyway, I'll behave myself and pass it on to Leslie. What are your thoughts, Leslie?
That's the prominence issue, and it can be kind of funny, but there's a reason for that. Go ahead, Leslie.
Yeah.
When you're out and about travelling, it doesn't matter where you are. There's always an amateur radio station, and there's always radio amateurs there. And I think what they're doing is going to increase the hobby, increase people coming into it. And when they're talking about the point Frank was making about emergency during the monsoon season and harsh weather conditions, great. This can only be good for the hobby. Back to you.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, in fairness, well, it's always great when we can get something else going and hear what's happening around the world. So, nice story there. Right, let's move to our next news story. An update on amateur radio license exams for the UK has just come out on Facebook, I believe, today, the 6th of February 2024. Chris, you put it up first. What do you think?
Right, so this story was really based on an email I received a couple of days ago from Ofcom regarding an update to the amateur radio license exams. There was a big license update proposal and a consultation happened here in the UK, managed by Ofcom, and that's planning to publish. They're planning to publish their final decision and the new license on 21st of February. What the RSGB are informing us via this email is that there'll be a delay between the license coming out and the new exams going live. So what they're saying is they're going to wait. It'll take about 6 months to get the exam updated, all the exam questions, etc., updated to reflect the new syllabus. So there may be a bit of a mismatch between the current exam or the current license conditions and the exams that are taken during that period. So they're just saying that there'll be a delay. I guess that's because we've got volunteers that have to spend a lot of time in going through and updating the syllabus and updating the exam pool. So they are suggesting it will be the 1st of September when the new license conditions the license conditions will actually go live the license change will go live in the UK earlier than this, basically. So there'll be a period of time, I think, in September when the exams will catch up, essentially. So, but what they are saying is that if someone does, during that period of time, if someone does take the exam and pass, then they're suggesting that they should be advised to go and read the new license conditions so they're actually up to date with what they actually are, because what they're saying is that they don't foresee any problems because in almost all cases the new license will be more permissive than the existing one. So that's kind of the announcement. There's been quite a lot of talk on social media about this. I won't going to name any names, but people have been saying, this has been something that's known about for quite some time. Why is it taking 6 months for this to, why have we got this gap, basically? There's also some comments as well about the fact the exam fees going up. Just a bit of criticism, shall we say, towards the RSGB. But I'm interested to see what the rest of the podcast think. So back to you, Martin.
Yeah, fine business, Chris, and I'm glad you added this one in. It's certainly for discussion. Leslie, what's your thoughts on this one?
Right. As quite rightly said, there's been a consultation process and there's been all these changes. You've got changes in the syllabus, you've got changes in the exam papers, you've got changes in the training manuals, you've got changes in the books. As you quite rightly said, those changes are, for the most part, done by volunteers, and it does take, now they've said 6 months, I would suggest a bit longer than that, because there's an awful lot of work involved, and I don't think that people outside really understand what's involved. There's no disrespect, it's not instant soup, and it does take time. So, yeah, there will be a period of bedding in, and they got this wrong, or that's not quite right, and these things sort themselves out given time. So I think 6 months to a year would be my guess. I know they've said 6 months, but hey, on that. Now the other thing is about the fees for the examinations, and I know this is a contentious issue. The RSGB, and I'm not a member anymore, but they've got to cover their costs, and those costs go up every year. It's unfortunate. I've seen this in other education establishments where the cost of courses and taking exams has actually gone through the roof. So let's suppose those costs aren't passed on, and then you're talking about some sort of form of subsidy and where that subsidy comes from. And the only place that subsidy could really come from, because it's a cost you've got to pass on somewhere, would be in the increase in the subscription level. And I don't ever see that members' countenance in that for one bit. So unfortunately, the fees will have to go up. I do understand it, and it's happening in a lot of places in the UK at the moment. I don't know what the situation is internationally. Other countries, I do know that run it on a volunteer basis. Unfortunately, we've tend to look at things in a rather commercial way in this country, and things have got to at least cover their costs. The whole idea of subsidising is somewhat gone out the window, and I know this will put off people coming into the hobby, and people will vote with their wallet or their money. Anyway, so that's as much as I could say on that, Martin, without being too controversial. Over to you.
Yeah, okay, mate. Well, I respect that you've kept it under control, because I know we had a much heated discussion previous.
I did try and keep things civil,
Yeah, true. No problems, Leslie. Martin, what's your thoughts?
How long you got?
As long as you want, mate.
Have we got enough tape?
In the old days, we did tape, Martin. Now we do it in the ether.
On the server.
Yeah.
Oh, I was really hoping we could get through an entire show without having to have a poke at the RSGB. Oh, geez.
I'm not having a poke at them.
Not
It's
you.
just...
Not you. Me. Oh,
go ahead then. I don't care.
There we go. Okay, so one of the websites, I think this is a social media saying RSGB will be lagging behind with students being taught outdated information for 6 months. Now, bearing in mind that some of these license conditions, talking about potentially being licensed for up to a kilowatt, this is potentially dangerous. That's a safety hazard. Yes, the RSGB have volunteers writing the syllabus and stuff, but the RSGB, a member body that people pay to belong to, also have paid staff. Bear that in mind straight away. My screen has just gone blank for a second. There we go. Now, okay, you could argue that I, as a full licensee, am currently licensed for 400 watts across most of the bands, which is what I'm trained for. Suddenly, there's going to be a point when I'm suddenly licensed to run a kilowatt. Yes, but I've also built up experience in this field to know what is and isn't safe. And before I switched on a kilowatt, and bear in mind, I don't want to work my neighbour's toaster, I personally would be double-checking safety concerns about the difference between 400 watts and a kilowatt. And I personally think that should be a criteria of new license if you've got that. Even if it was just like an online CBT, just watch this and understand this. I have to ask, what are the RSGB doing? Are they being lazy? Are they dragging their heels? Can they not be bothered? Have they issued some kind of excuse or comment on this? Now, there's part of me that also thinks that, I know this is an Ofcom decision to do this. This wasn't something that has come out from the RSGB. It wasn't the RSGB's idea. But I refuse to believe that the RSGB didn't know about this before the majority of the amateurs. Bear in mind that the RSGB are in charge of, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're in charge of like examinations and providing the syllabus and stuff like that. I don't believe that Ofcom, as the people that have assigned them to do that, wouldn't have said, hey, we've got this potential coming up. You might want to start thinking about rewriting your exams and things like this. We may have heard about it 2 or 3 months ago. I would reckon that the RSGB probably heard this about a year ago. That's a guess. I'm being very clear. That is a guess, but I do not believe for one moment that they've heard about this. They're probably dragging their heels. And if you're stuck on preparing the material, if only you had a member body that you could reach out to, okay, I don't, even when I was a member of the RSGB, and full disclosure, I'm not, I didn't read that comic because it just didn't interest me. But maybe they had like a database of all your members that were advanced. And, hey, could you help us out writing some new questions? Would you be interested in helping submit any new questions? You've got all these things that you're doing. Why are you not using them? Come on. What are people paying for with the RSGB anymore? Ofcom are aware of what's going on with the RSGB. I mean, seriously, come on, stop dragging your hair.
Can I pick you up on one thing?
Absolutely.
Good. RF safety.
Yes.
That particular subject was looked at 12 years ago.
So why has it not been updated?
Right. Let me tell you. Most of the people I spoke to at the time were dead against it within the society. Absolutely.
Against RF safety?
Even talking about the subject, you don't do it. Now, what we did is we produced a leaflet, a guidance leaflet, that advised the radio amateurs what to do. That leaflet, what happened was that we had a radio amateur, and he took one look at that and said, I'm not doing that nonsense. He got into a dispute, and he didn't follow any of the guidance. That guidance was available 12 years ago. None of it was followed.
But you could say don't put your fingers in a plug socket. And if you tell people not to do it...
We had a leaflet, and because he didn't follow it, that guidance was withdrawn.
But don't run out in the road without looking. It happens, and people get hurt. If you don't follow the guidance, it's your own stupid fault. Well,
that's what happened. So it wasn't a case of there wasn't guidance, because there was.
So where is it now? But either way, that aside, safety is part of the.
I know, because I was heavily involved with it at the time.
Yeah, and safety is now part of the course. And
Can I make a point? So, okay, I get the point that the new license conditions allow us to use more power.
Yeah.
But what about other those of us that have already got a license? Like I've not been necessarily trained to the degree where, as a full license holder, I'm allowed to use 400 watts.
Yeah.
Okay, and maybe in the future, when this new license hopefully comes out, I'll be able to use more power than that. But I haven't been trained. Again, I've not had to go for another license exam to get that additional power. No. So, what's the difference here?
Okay, there is a web thing on the RSGB. If you follow that web page and fill out the information on your station, it will give you a clearance distance. Let's say 5 meters. If you're running 100 watts, I believe it's 5 meters off the top of my head. And providing your distance between the ground and the antenna exceeds that distance, you're fine. So you print those results off, you put them with your records, with your license, and you store them.
Didn't someone do a really helpful spreadsheet on this? Not the RSG. I think
it was me.
Was it you?
It was me, yes.
Because I've seen that. Like, it was even easier to use. But
it was I did that at the time, and we worked out. It wasn't all my own work, because a lot of the work was already done. So I was sort of trying to pull in work from different countries and different sources. But the principles and how you work it out are pretty much the same. Now, you can use the website, and that will take you about 10, 15 minutes to do. Very easy.
Oh, not even that.
But guys, let's be brutally honest about this. You're going off a bit of tangent.
I know.
I can technically run 400 watts. I've been licensed 20 years. I think the only time I've ever run anywhere close to that was when I operated the Cray Valley station, Oscar 2-1, the
Two
Olympics.
Oscar,
2 Oscar 1-2 Lima, which was the Olympic site for the UK. Now, special event station. But in fairness, a lot of us, a large proportion of us, live in built-up areas where we won't be able to run a kilowatt. We can't even run 400 watts. A lot of us also probably too bloody mean to buy a linear amplifier, if you want it honestly. So
Yeah.
effectively, the kilowatt stations are going to be the big contest boys who are running 400 watts now, predominantly. Outside of that, yes, it's nice. Yeah, it's a nice tick in the box, but I honestly can't see it doing much for me.
Talk about a kilowatt. We're running a kilowatt, and we're talking about advanced licenses, but foundations are going to be allowed 25.
Yeah,
intermediates going to be 100. So technically, their syllabus needs to be updated,
yes.
and even then, and those questions must exist because that syllabus exists already because it's part of the advanced to run 400. And I said you could easily provide this information by the form of a CBT or something like that. That if you are going to do that, we strongly advise you as an existing advanced license holder to complete this online CBT training course that can just be like it only needs to be half a dozen slides and a voiceover. That could be someone can produce that in an afternoon.
Well, as you quite rightly say, guys,
it is controversial, and I can see why people get het up about it, and there's new things coming in, but there has been advice out there for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, let's be fair, Leslie and Martin, you're both not members. You're quite right to have your say. No. Everybody has a right to have a say. That's the beauty of this podcast. Yeah. You said what you feel. Others may change. Bill, I don't believe you're a member of the RSGB, but I'm bringing you in just in case you have a hard stop fairly soon.
I do. However, Martin.
What have we done?
Look, we give technicians our entry-level license 1.5 kilowatts here in America.
Yeah, but you guys run that on your CBs out there.
But we do have our safety questions in the exam.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's not difficult. It really isn't.
And I also now have a newfound appreciation for our volunteer examiner coordinators and our volunteer examination system because they're putting in a lot of effort for no cost.
They can get 900 questions right, and if there's one word in one question wrong, guess what people are going to be looking at?
Well, that happens every time the poll comes out. There's usually a typo or a...
It happens.
Yeah, it happens. But we also have this. We also have a published poll, which really helps. Except it takes Dan forever to update his books.
Oh, so we're now saying the problem's Dan's fault. Oh, this is getting controversial.
I tell everybody here stateside, if you're not using Dan's book, you're doing it wrong.
Anyway, sort of like Martin said, just bring it sort of back on. There are going to be these changes, and unfortunately, the exam fees are going to be put up. But hey, that's where we are today.
To be fair, can I actually just say something in fairness of the exam fees? Now, I don't personally think that this should be a commercial organisation for obvious reasons, but everything is going up. The cost of pasta and toilet roll is going up. The cost of electricity is going through the roof. Everything goes up. So, you can't have a go at people for that. If it's going up to maximise their profits, that's unfair because it shouldn't be commercial. But if the cost of physically delivering something goes up, well, yeah, it does. That's life.
The cost has got to be passed on.
I agree. I think they're just covering the costs. They're just looking at the history of this. So there was an increase in 2011, and the next increase from that was 2022. So they had a 10, 11-year gap between price increases. Then, of course, there's been another one announced this year, so another couple of years later. So it's not been, I think it probably is just going to be to cover costs rather than, I don't think anyone. It's a 3-pad increase, so we're not talking about a huge increase, not doubling it, that sort of thing. So I think they are actually just covering costs here.
Well, before I'm going to let Frank have a go because Frank is an RSGB member, and although a lot of this licensing stuff won't affect you, Frank, unless you come over. But last words on this one?
I am an RSGB member, and I look at it in that way. I don't live there. I don't operate by the license exam rules. I will throw this in. One of the problems with fees for service is that if you try to be a good sport about it and say, okay, we ran into red last year, but let's just kind of keep the fees the same. We don't want to go up on them. And then you go on, and suddenly we have got to raise the fees. Then what happens? You tend to have a higher hike on the fees at that point. So to some degree, you're not necessarily doing anybody any favors if you wait a long time before you raise the fees, if your goal is to cover the cost. So I'll just throw that in there. It's not easy no matter how you do it. And I agree with Bill over here in the States, both the creating of the exams, having been in the business of writing exams myself and doing measurement stuff, it's not that easy, and you can get some things wrong if you don't really pay fastidious care. So I feel for the question pool creators. On the other hand, there's just a hell of a lot of volunteer work, at least over here on this side of the pond, that goes into this licensing business. So I'll just say that. So I feel for the controversy. Let me just put it that way.
Well, so thanks, Frank, for that one. And
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah. In fairness, quite a lively discussion, boys. And yeah, I didn't throw my 2 pennies in, Leslie.
No.
But you guys did enough for me, so fine. Okay, let's find out what you've been up to since the last time. And I know Bill's close to his hard stop, so I'm going to let Bill go first. What have you been up to, Bill?
Yeah, it's been a little while. I got wrapped up in some stuff. Actually, no, the last call I missed, I think I was sick. I think it's when I had that cold. I don't know. It's all blurring together. But here at the end of January, I did work the Clipperton Island DXpedition on FT8 on 40 meters and 30 meters. And I also got them on 10 meter SSB, which was interesting to break the pile up because I don't have up tower and large antennas and stuff. So I used my flex, and I found the guy was doing a pattern. So I would watch on the spectrum display, and he would work like 1 or 2 stations, and then he'd move up 3, work 2 or 3 stations, move up 3, 2 or 3 stations, move up 3. So I made sure that he was working 5 to 15 up. So I sat at the 15, and I started calling right as he was done with that last station 3 down. So he got me right away on that pile up. So that worked out well. And that's a little tidbit for those folks that have the SDRs with the big waterfall displays. You can see if the operator has a pattern. Now, I tried to work them on CW on both. I tried on 20 and 40, 20, 30, and 40. But man, oh man, they were just going way too fast. I might actually broke the pile up a few times, but they were going so fast that I probably didn't catch my call. I sent at 15. At one point, I sped it up to 18, even though I really can't copy 18 very well. And he was. I don't even know how fast the expedition was sending. I did not. I had the heck of a time getting TX5S. It came out very, very fast. So I'm not exactly sure how fast it was. That's what the way I described it to my friend when I was emailing him earlier in the week. It was contest weekend speeds. I don't know if folks do any CW contesting, but generally the speeds are way, way above 25 words per minute, and I just can't keep up. And then the other story I have for sharing what's going on is I decided about 3 or 4 weeks ago to dig out the packet radio stuff and check out what's on the air locally on VHF Packet. So I dug out my trusty little TNC Pi. I have this little board here. We don't have a camera on, but I'm holding it right now. And It's a board you stick on top of the Raspberry Pi or goes in the 40-pin slot in the back of my Pi 400. And you plug in your radio, and it's basically a KISS TNC. For those that are aware of the different kinds of TNCs, this one, instead of being like a terminal, it's programmed with KISS. So it didn't work. I was not having any luck with it receiving or transmitting. And as I was diagnosing the board to see what was going on, I noticed the PIC chip was hot. Well, this is a unusual PIC chip for me. It's 16F, something 387 or 367 or something like that. So I dug through my little pile of microprocessor PIC chips I have here. And I actually have a blank one from some project. According to the data sheet in the little envelope I have it in, it's automotive PIC chip. So then I went on the great search of the internet trying to find code to put on this thing. And the people that sold the TNC Pi, they're long gone. I sent an email out to G8 BPQ through Groups.io. Didn't get a hold of him yet. But basically, I just need the code, and I'll program a PIC chip, and this thing will probably work. Because the PIC chip is directly connected to the Raspberry Pi bus. And if I would have bumped it and knocked it partially out of the slot, it would have popped the chip. So, figuring out what to do, I have a bunch of other TNC2s here in boxes. And like the first one I pulled out, I have a leaky capacitor in it right off the bat. Second one I pulled out of the box, the battery corroded right to the board. And I'm like, okay, I got to do something new. So I went online, did some searching, and I ran across the Terrestrial Amateur Radio Packet Network out of North Carolina. Actually built a 9600 1200 baud TNC called the Nino TNC, and they use it for their linking projects that they're doing down there. And you order the board off of Etsy with a program PIC chip. I think it was $14 or $15, and then they give you an Excel spreadsheet to load the Mauser for all the rest of the parts. I think it was $28 or $29 for that plus shipping. So for about $50, I got all these parts in, and then I got a little bit of time on Sunday between stuff with the kids. And so I sat here and I put together a TNC and, did all the testing and all this other stuff, got it all working well and plugged into the Pi and got right back on 2-meter packet. Checked out a few of the nodes that are still around, checked out one of the BBSs that was still around. Had a good Sunday evening play with it. So that worked out really well. And then I said to the wife, hey, can I print a case on your 3D printer? So I printed a case on Monday and Tuesday. I printed the bottom on Monday and the top on Tuesday. And now I got this thing in a nice little case, and it's sitting here behind the Pi 400, and we're back on 2-meter packet. And that's the only update I have for this month.
Well, that sounds interesting, Bill. And I was in my junk room the other day, and I came across a TNC. Can't remember which one it was, but I got one. I don't think it's a particularly fast one, but yeah, one I bought 20 odd years ago, and it was secondhand then. So they're still around, TNCs, Bill. No problems at all.
All right, 73, everybody.
Yeah, 73, Bill. Look after yourself, and we'll catch you again soon.
73, Bill.
Yeah. So, Frank, what have you been up to?
It was interesting to hear Bill's comments, because earlier in the podcast recording, he mentioned that SFI was 190, and I looked at my 188, and I looked at my ham clock, and it was 190. Well, the difference is we're in two different time zones, and my ham clock hadn't updated to the UTC-based day, and now mine's 188. So for our listeners out there that may not realize that was something that I learned. Okay, what have I been up to? Well, I gave a talk in January, late January, on the ICQ podcast Digital Voice Talk Group to the Vicksburg, Mississippi Amateur Radio Club. I think the group was most impressed with the digital mode bridging capability that we have, thanks to you, Martin, and the team that has managed that and put that together, Andy Taylor and others. As you know, there are very few in the world that do that, and ours is one of them. Now, many of the people there in the audience were new to hotspots, so I had a few show and tell. This is what one looks like. Here's how it works, and so on. Several had one or more hotspots, so some really good feedback afterwards. And I hope that some of the people there in attendance will give a key up to the ICQ Podcast Digital Voice Talk group in the near future, and maybe we'll get some more posts on board. The biggest thing probably been working with is we had our large Hamfest, a rally here in the state this past weekend. And the Jackson Amateur Radio Club is the sponsor of that. So I kicked off the forums on Friday afternoon with a talk on strategic partnerships with public libraries by ham radio clubs. Now, I had two members of the Madison County Library System administrative staff there on the panel with me. I had our ARL director and vice director, Dave Norris and Ed Hudgens there, and then the rest of the hams who were attending. And I believe the talk was well received by all parties from the feedback. And one thing became clear. Librarians want hams involved. We give them some things that they really want. Their ARL board member and his vice director are clearly on board. Ed Hudgens up near Nashville, they've already been doing some work with libraries. So I think that bond became very clear. Now, we did get the sad letter that the ARL Foundation did not fund the $3,000 3D printer request that the Jackson Club put in this particular round. The reviewers didn't think there was enough ham radio in just a 3D printer. I get that. I've been involved in that. But the Jackson Club announced during that session that while it wasn't funded, they were going to jolly well buy that $3,000 3D printer for the library system out of their own money. And a little bit of a surprise, but a great move in my take. The technical director of the library system was in the audience and on the panel, and she announced she'd committed to getting her technician license over the next few months. And moreover, she has set a goal for all the branch libraries in the county to have one person at least become a licensed ham radio operator and to get a ham radio system in each branch library, because they want to do active demonstrations to their patrons. Now, the Jackson Club will do in our Get Smart at the Library on one Saturday a quarter, but they want to take the bull by the horns and do some of it themselves. And what a great announcement that she made. And the fact that she is a woman, I think, just adds to it, because young girls will see someone like themselves doing technical stuff, and I think that'll be an incentive. So our division director, Dave Norris, who's president of the foundation, said, look, given this, why don't you revise your proposal, submit it this next time, which is now in February, with ham radio equipment, and it will likely get a very, very positive review. So we will do that. So we were delighted, Martin, to have our linkage with the libraries, at least in Madison County, get legs, and other hams were there, and they're going home to talk to their libraries. And I've already had emails from someone in Hattiesburg, up near Memphis and other places, that they're going to get this moving. So that's good. The third thing is my 3-part series on transmit quality and HF transceivers has just had part 2 published in Practical Wireless. Part 3 will be in next month's issue. And I just have to give kudos to Don Field. He's such a good editor to work with, and he gives you quick decisions on manuscripts, whether it's up or down. So we really enjoy working with Practical Wireless. And finally, I'm putting together a feature for the podcast on various popular map programs in ham radio. The commercial Geochron product, which is hardware and software. The Ham Clock, which is open source software, but you can buy a product from Innovato with a small computer to go with that. That's a little bit customized. And over on your side of the pond, Martin, Mapability. that Tim, and I forget Tim's call sign, has put out, along with a number of other pieces of terrific looking software, as well as Simon Brown and his map. So I'll put together a brief comparison profile because I'm using all of those. And one thing I'll notice about Ham Clock, it's got a number of things, and I have mine programmed so that the daily sunspot number and a graph of the previous 30 days is there. And it hit me that I'll hear people talk about, well, I looked at the smooth sunspot, but the bands are crap. This stuff on sunspots doesn't work. And what dawned on me is what's happening is they're looking at the monthly smooth sunspot. And so I went back to 1800 in the data archive and created some graphs. And if you take the smooth sunspot for the month and expect that to tell you whether the bands are likely to be open or not, you may be off by as many as in January, 100 sunspots. We went from about 50 to over 150 in January. So I'm going to put together a brief little paper that illustrates how the smooth sunspot never affected your propagation on a given day. The daily sunspot may have. So a little bit of interest there, Martin. And I'll close with that. That's mostly what I've been up to this time.
Well, that sounds interesting, Frank. And you're a busy bunny like all of us. So good one. Leslie, what have you been doing since we last spoke?
Oh, something a bit different, Martin. What happened was I had a question. I belong to the Silverthorne Radio Club in Chingford, by the way. So that's my local club. And Colin, our secretary, said to me one of these questions, and he said, Les, when was the club formed? And I didn't know. And I thought, okay, let's find out. So I started searching through some archives, some historical online archives from Shortwave magazine, some from Practical Wireless, and they're all available online. And I'm looking at our founders, G2HR. Chingford is one of those places where you got 3 radio amateurs and 2 radio clubs. So you can imagine. And I've started going through all the archives, and I'm going through all this and just trying to put a picture of how my personal little club got together. Anyway, I went up there on Friday, and I thought, hang on a minute, there's 4 boxes of documents in the bottom cupboard, and I pulled out these documents and I put them on the bench, and there was the minutes were written on tracing paper, and it's minutes going back to the early 1950s of exactly what was happening in the club. And also I actually found a photograph album saying on the front, established 1952, and I went, yes. And there was this gold mine of photographs of what the Silverthorne Radio Club used to do, everything from their field days to Chingford days. And I looked at this stuff and my jaw just dropped. So I've been going through all the minutes, I've been going through all the photographs, and yeah, they all wore jackets and ties in those days, and it was all rather posh, dreadfully posh, should we say. But I'm convinced, you know what, if I look to the club then and I look to the club now, we certainly, the equipment's changed, of course, but we still do similar things, and it was just great. It was great looking through these archives.
Well, that sounds great, Leslie, and history is always a good one. So, good one on that. Martin, what have you been up to?
A fair amount, I think, as well as you will know, but the listeners won't. We went and fixed the repeater. Randomly, it just started buzzing, and there's a lot of comments appearing online. And I think Chris went back and are you sure it's not data going through before we start doing anything? But otherwise, message me. And I started getting a lot of emails, so people actually telling me when it went wrong. And then I had a phone call from you, and seconds later, I had a phone call from Kim, who's one of our regular users as well. I was like, yep, okay, I'm aware of it. When it was quite a strong signal. We weren't 100% sure it wasn't a jammer, but it was just buzzing. So obviously we went up there, turned it off and on again, and everything is all okay now. So that's all good. Seems to be working really, really well. I've been playing with my Anytone radio. Now, we obviously have recommended the Anytone radio, and not in Tool sponsored. We've recommended the Anytone 878 radios for a while. And I found two things with it. One, by accident, I found out that, obviously mine it's a Bluetooth version. It's got an FC in it. And I accidentally paired it with my Bluetooth headphones. I sort of literally went to scratch my head when I had it in my hand, and suddenly my Bluetooth headphones went beep, paired. The what? You can pair it by using NFC, just holding it next to it. So I was suitably impressed by that. But the other thing that I noticed with the Anytone radio, and this is where I found a sort of a downside with it, if you will, is the antenna on it. Obviously, it's compromised antenna. It's a rubber duck. It's a dual band antenna. It's 2 meters and 70 centimeters, and I've sort of just been using it. But because obviously we had an issue with XP, I've just been carrying around like my little Hytera 370 VHF radio, which has got a shorter VHF only antenna on it, and that hears and accesses XP really well, whereas the Anytone doesn't. And I put the shorter antenna on the Anytone, and I tell you what, it works really, really well on VHF. And so the antenna that comes with the Anytone just doesn't work as well on VHF as obviously an antenna that is designed for. I appreciate the Hytera one, and the Motorola one that I've got as well is like helically wound, whereas the one for the Anytone isn't. But it is something I was playing with, and I was just accessing my home hotspot. I'm like, yeah, it makes a huge difference. Even though the antenna is shorter, it does work better. So if you have an Anytone 878, consider using a different antenna. Certainly if you're using VHF. My HF aerial is still down. I still need to get some wire to fix it. I just haven't got around to do that. But thinking about it, I'm sort of having a rethink where I want the shack, and I might put the aerial in a different tree. So I'll get around to that. I did go to an electrical wholesaler the other day. Said, hey, do you have like single strand wire? I'm like, oh no, we don't sell that. I'm like, what? Anyway, I digress. Trialing some comms. We do a lot of events at work, basically on my job. We need a comm system, like a full duplex comm system. We use like 446 walkie-talkies. They work fine. Headsets with them are rubbish. And sometimes we do just need full duplex. And we've been trialing systems. We've got something in the region of about 50 plus wireless microphones that run in the decked band. God knows how they all fit together. They're certainly not on any managed system. We thought we don't want to spend stupid money on a system, on a comm system, if it's not going to work in us. So we switched them all on, and then we hired in a deck system. Interesting playing with that. That's a bit of fun. Also been playing with 2.4 gig comm system, which obviously in central London doesn't work very well. And also a system that works on 868 megs, which was, or around there, which was, again, surprising results from that, from a duplex system. I don't understand how it works, but it does. And the only other thing, radio-related thing that I've been working on, I had a massive, massive event that I was involved with about 2 weeks ago, and all the hire kit turned up. Someone else had taken care of the hire, and I opened the flight case with all the microphones in, and there were like 20 wireless microphones sitting in front of me. And I had a momentary panic thinking, right, we have a license for this venue that covers us for like 10 general use frequencies. And I had a bit of a panic. Oh my God. Fortunately, the hire company have taken care of getting us 2 TV channels in the 500 meg range for the day or so that we were doing the event. And you can, in a TV channel, you can basically fit in as many as you can cram in that space, you can use it. So frantically trying to remember the formula to work out how far apart how close the frequencies can be together for your different microphones without bleeding over and without being on like an intermod frequency. Say Sennheiser have a whole chart of what is and isn't. Unfortunately, they were Shure mics, which not only don't sound as good, they don't have a list of preset frequencies like that, at least not that I could find. So frantically doing the maths, I'm like, yeah, we can put that one there. Yeah, we can put that one there. Yeah, it's fun. People looking at me like, what are you doing? Why can't you just put it there? Like, there is logic to this. But it was, they all got programmed, and that was a bit of fun. And I taught some of my colleagues how to do that. Normally, I have to tell people on the stage, don't cup the microphone. Don't put your hand around the grill at the top because you'll cause feedback. In this case, I had to go on stage and tell the DJ not to hold on to the antenna of the microphone because it suddenly started going. It's like, yeah, don't hold the antenna, mate. But yeah. So radio-wise, that is pretty much what I've been doing in the last month.
Well, sounds like you've been enjoying yourself at work, if not on amateur radio, Martin. So all good. Chris, what have you been up to since we last spoke?
Well, not as much as the other guys, but a few things. I have, not that related, I have ordered a Raspberry Pi 5. So for those that aren't familiar, Raspberry Pi is a little credit card-sized computer. The first version came out in 2012, believe it or not. So what's that, 12 years ago? And they've been gradually improving it over the years. And the latest version is pretty high spec. It's got a quad-core, a 64-bit quad-core, 2.4 gigahertz CPU. The one I've ordered has got 8 gigabytes of RAM. It's basically like a little PC. So I thought I'd order one for fun. I'm sure I'm going to try and play with it. I think there are some good use cases. I think we've now got some SDR type software that might benefit from this extra performance. So I might try it with SDR Connect, although I'm not sure it's fully supported. I'll have to look at that, see if they support it on the Pi 5. I know they support it on the Pi 4. Hopefully it will support it on the Pi 5 as well. So that'll be good. So yeah, sort of got that. I'm going to play around with that and just see what it offers. They're claiming 2 to 3 times fast performance than the Pi 4. So that should be interesting. I mentioned SDR Connect, so I've been playing with that a bit. So that's from SDR Play. I've also noticed, although I haven't got one, SDR Play have brought out a new device, the RSP-1B, which has some improvements over the RSP-1A. We'll no doubt talk to SDR Play when we're over in Dayton in May, and probably get some more information on that then. But that's a new product from them. Obviously, we're looking forward to our trip to Dayton coming up soon. We're kind of still on the planning stage. I know Martin, you and I and Colin were still figuring out exactly what we're going to do, and our kind of little road trip we're going to have afterwards. So that should be great fun. I've also bought quite a few things actually recently. I got a bit addicted to AliExpress, the Chinese website for electronics and other stuff. So I have another proud owner of a number of these Quansheng handheld radios, which I'm actually quite. I know, Martin, you talked about one of these on a previous feature, and I've got a few of them now. But I'm actually, for the price, I'm actually really impressed. I had a little weekend trip away to Cheddar here in the UK, which is kind of a hilly area, not a SOTA summit, unfortunately. So I took with me one of my Quanshengs and did actually use it, and it actually works pretty well. I had quite a long chat with a new licensed M7, as we are over here, Foundation license holder, on it. And yeah, I was telling him all about it. He was just new into the hobby, and he had a mobile rig he was using on the repeater there. In fact, I have to say, GB3WR, which is in that part of the world, has phenomenal coverage. Very impressed with that repeater. So yeah, I had a chat with him through that repeater on I think it's on the 2 meter band, and the Quansheng worked pretty well. So far quite impressed. And in fact, when I was chatting to him, he's obviously very new. I think he's passed his license 2 weeks before, so he's still trying to figure out what he wants to do. And I mentioned about SOTA, and he seemed to be quite impressed on that idea. So we may hear a new person up on the hills soon, hopefully. So not that much, Martin, compared to the other guys, but that's pretty much it from me.
Yeah. Well, that's all good, as long as you enjoyed yourself. Well, I'm going to try and make mine as quick as possible because we are running long. This weekend would have been the third session of Smart Radio at the local library, the pilot I'm doing with the aid of Frank. And unfortunately, the library in the UK that we're doing at has had to close for routine maintenance and won't be open till next week. So unfortunately, we've lost one session. But we are starting to get traction on people coming to the website. They are starting to see some of the stuff on the web we're putting up. So hopefully it won't take too long before it really kicks off. Have been operating a little bit mobile because I've been in the car a fair wedge recently, and I just enjoy operating mobile anyway. Did a couple of weeks ago, we went out there was another 145 Alive, and went out, and that was interesting. The guys were working 145 Alive. We had 2 groups from Sutton and Cheam on Epsom Downs, about a quarter of a mile apart. and we were working quite a few stations, which was good. I did go to Canvey Island Rally in Essex last weekend, and I've got some interviews which I've rolled together for the feature for this, and there's some interesting conversations there, I believe, anyway. As Martin said, we fixed the repeater. Yeah, we keep an eye on it, monitoring it anyway, but it's back up and working. And in fairness, it is a fairly busy repeater. I mean, I was out this morning with Mrs. B, and she doesn't really like me operating when I'm in the car with her, because she said I should talk to her. But it had conversation on for a fair while. I would say at least 45 minutes. There was a fair amount of conversation going on middle of the morning when most people are at work. So it does get used. And what else have I been up to? I did a walk with another amateur. My friend Tim, G4YBU, is approaching his 70th year on the planet and decided to do 70 walks in a year. Just go out for a walk and a natter. So we went out, we walked along the North Downs a little way, and just had a really good chat about all sorts of things while we were out. We did try and do a bit of radio, but on 2 meters at lunchtime there, pretty much the band was dead. So we didn't make any contacts apart from working each other. But apart from that, it was a thoroughly good walk. And the last thing I'm going to say, and I'm not moaning, please, guys, but, our digital talk group is up and working. But if you just blip it, sometimes you don't go through all the way, so some of the modes don't spot you. So if you say blip D star, it might only register with the D star, but the other modes might not spot you. Number two, if you just blip it and don't put a call for it, I assume you don't want to talk to anybody. So I've been seeing quite a few just blips and sitting there thinking, do I call them back? Or do they just blip it to see if it's working or they're connecting to the network? So, guys, if you want to contact, put a call through and go from there. It's not the busiest talk group in the world, but there's some interesting people lurking, should I say. So that's what I've been up to. And all in all, I think we've all been pretty busy. So all that's left for me to do is thank the guys for turning up tonight and joining me on this podcast talk group. I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Howard, M0TCH.
Yeah, cheers, Martin. Cheers, guys.
Yeah.
That's a long one tonight, but thank you very much.
Yeah. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Martin Rothwell, M0SGL.
It's been fun. See you next time.
Will do. I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Howell, K4FM8.
Thank you, Martin. It's good to be here again and looking forward to seeing some of you guys face to face in Xenia once again.
I think it'll be fun, Frank, because Colin's going to try again to control us, and there's no hope, is there?
None whatsoever. I'm bringing a spare set of diapers for me and you as the toddlers.
Yep. We're like a pair of naughty toddlers, so we'll enjoy ourselves. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Mr. Leslie Butterfield, G0CIB, for joining us tonight.
Thanks for inviting me, Martin. It's been a tad lively tonight.
Well, it doesn't hurt anybody to go lively occasionally.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. And last but not least, Bill Barnes, WC3B, had to leave us earlier. You heard him say goodbye. But Bill's on a hard stop at work. So thanks, Bill, for joining us. So all that's left for me to say 73, guys, and we'll move to the next part of the podcast. 73.
Cheerio.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief for me, Colin M6BOY. The Fox 1D, the AO92 satellite, it's an AMSAT CubeSat satellite that's operated for 6 years in orbit and has been very popular with our community through its FM transponder, has unfortunately reached the end of its life. With its aging batteries, the satellite can no longer operate reliably and was most recently inoperable for the last few months. The satellite re-entered the Earth's orbit on the 3rd of February. So, as I say, unfortunately, that one is on its way back to us. But we'll pop a link on the ICQ podcast webpage where you can see distance records and a set of images that have been captured during the experimental camera part of that satellite. Now, if you love your Raspberry Pi and would love to do a net each Sunday on EchoLink and AllStar, one has been set up. It's each Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time or 2200 UTC, and the ROC hams are on EchoLink conference node 531091 and AllStar node 2585 47620 47918. Or 531310. Now, don't panic, guys, if you're listening in the car, all that will be on the ICQ podcast website for you. There's a wide cast of characters and plenty of Raspberry Pi love to go around, so sit back and enjoy that team from there. So good luck to the guys in launching that from there. Now, we mentioned the RSGB in the UK are supporting British Science Week and the theme of time. And they've got a challenge for every age group category, and the winners for each group will win a prize. And the challenge is to use readily available components, material, other resources, provide a method of either measuring the frequency of a radio frequency, source or signal, or providing a time reference to a radio operator or radio system. So we'll put the link to the challenge on our website, but certainly for the builders of you out there who would love to mix your love of the hobby with British Science Week, an interesting little challenge there for you to build something of interest and submit that for a prize to the RSGB's Science Week challenge. Now we head over to our features episode where we report from the Canvey Island Rally. As always, hope you enjoy.
And now what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast. Well, hi guys, I'm down in Canvey Island Rally, thoroughly enjoying myself. First rally of the year for the ICQ podcast. I'm over at the Canvey Island Rally today. Lovely Sunday, a little bit overcast, but the overcastness is outside, not on the amateurs' faces at this rally. We've thoroughly walked round, there's a lot going on, and I'm with Dorothy, one of the organisers. Dorothy, long time no, well, at least a year since I've seen you. How are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you very much. How are you and all your ICQ podcasts? Nice to see you here again. Thank you for coming. But yeah, we're really enjoying it here. Nice and busy. As you say, the weather's overcast, but not as cold as it's been other years. But yeah, it seems to be very busy. Lots of people coming and going. They've got their bargains in the hand and they come back in for like round 2, which is quite good. So it seems to be quite successful as usual, which is good.
Yeah, it certainly is, and we've been wandering around, chatting to various people. I actually got just done an interview with somebody that said that in 16 years I've never done an interview with them, and it wasn't because I didn't want to. Sometimes things just don't work out the way they are.
Yeah, that's the way it is. I suppose if you're very busy, you can't always get to speak to everyone because it is quite a busy rally. There's 2 big halls, one gymnasium with lots of tables in there, obviously, and then a smaller table here as well. Still within the building, but not next to each other. But yeah, 2 hallfuls of traders and sellers, and it seems to be going quite well at the moment, which is good.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed your other half, Richard, wandering around. Most people know him as Mr. Dorothy, but
QRM. A lot of people call him QRM because when I'm on local, like 2 metre FM nets and things and 70s, he's often in the background. He doesn't want to take the mic, but he wants to chat and talk and have his say, so they call him QRM as well, bless him. But yeah, he's very well known.
Yeah, I've sat close to you while you've operated, and Yeah, you are a serious operator. You enjoy it. I wound you up at the time and said you had to fill 2 pages of the logbook up.
I did. And I did. It was an achievement, and I did it. I got set a task, and I did it. I filled 2 pages up of QSOs. I think it was on the Belfast, wasn't it? GB2RN, I think was the call sign. And I had a mission, and I filled 2 pages with QSOs. I was very pleased with that one.
You certainly did, and yeah, we had a great time on the Belfast. It's a shame that it doesn't sort of happen like it used to. Things have gone a little bit awry there, in my opinion, but we had fun.
We did indeed. It's a really great place to operate radio from, on an iconic ship. To be able to operate radio from a ship in London was fantastic. Great venue, nice radios to play on. Used to love working from there. It's really good. It's a shame that they've taken the radios off a lot of the places like that. I think they've done the same at Duxford as well, unfortunately, taken away the radio stations. But while it was there, I made the most of it as much as I could, and I loved it so much. Really loved it.
Yeah. So, 2024. What's your plans for 2024? What are you getting up to?
Oh gosh, hopefully do some portable work outside. Haven't done much for a couple of years or so. Go to rallies if we can. Join the club sort of thing, have radio events there sort of thing, lots of special event stations we go to. If there's any that I can do and they're up and running, I'll go to if I can make it, because I love them. Last year with Chelmsford Amateur Radio Society, we was on Light Vessel 15, which is a light ship at Tollsbury, and we operated from there for the day. That was fantastic on there. I loved that as well. It was really nice to be able to operate from a light ship, which is really good. I enjoyed that. So I'll go anywhere. I'll go anywhere I can play radio.
I know, because when you're sat in front of a radio, and you're giving me the same facial look now, but when you're sat in front of a radio, you got a big smile ear to ear, and you thoroughly enjoy operating. So that's good.
Yes, I'm definitely a happy ham. I absolutely love playing radio. I just like chatting with people, finding out where they are, what they're doing, what they're up to, what their plans are as well, and just making communications and having fun.
Yeah, so that's all good. So I'm not going to hold you too much longer, but congratulations. The rally looks really, really good at the moment. So hopefully we get an invite next year.
Oh, most definitely. You're always welcome, you guys, any time at all. We love seeing you and we love having you here. And also love meeting you when you go around. We go around other rallies and meet you there while you're working as well. But yeah, it's a really great rally. It seems to be very popular, so we're very pleased. And thank you to everyone who's come along and helped out as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time, Dorothy. Look after yourself and we'll catch you soon.
You're welcome. Thank you very much indeed. And have a good day yourselves. Thank you.
Sorry guys, I was a little bit slow on getting the recorder started, so I missed the very short part of this, but I'm sure you'll enjoy the rest of it. And it was a great announcement by Essex CW Club.
Our founder member. He's been at the forefront of supporting our members for over 15 years now, since the club was founded. He's led by example and has proactively helped to raise the profile of our club, both nationally and internationally. Andy has ensured that our club encourages, maintains and promotes the use of Morse code on the amateur bands. Andy has also personally encouraged a good many of the Essex CW members to practice and get on the air. Andy has championed the teaching and practice of CW and is a recognised RSGB CW instructor. In a professional role, Andy was a telegrapher in the Royal Navy. As an amateur radio operator, he is a member of the Chelmsford Amateur Radio Society, the Royal Navy Amateur Radio Society, CW FIS Club, the First Class CW Operators Club, the High Speed Club, and the Straight Key Century Club. I always thought that was the Silent Key Club, but it's the Straight Key Club. To recognise the above-mentioned facts, the Committee of Essex CW has cordially invited Andy to become our very first honorary president. Now, the appointment of an honorary president recognises the highly committed individual who has supported and maintained and made an exceptional and significant contribution to the club. That's certainly very true of Andy. The committee agreed that this should be a 5-year term of office, not intended to place any extra burden on Andy, because he's got a very special birthday coming up in October, and it's to recognise he's made an exceptional and significant contribution to the club. And we want to recognise the outstanding individual in our midst. We sincerely hope he'll remain an active member of committee. We can't stop him doing what he likes doing, and to continue in his roles of teaching, mentoring and leadership. And while he remains an elected committee member, of course he'll retain voting rights. I'm very pleased to announce that Andy has accepted our invitation and is therefore now our honorary president of the Essex CW Amateur Radio Club. Hip hip! Hip hip! Hip hip!
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Congratulations, Andy.
Thank you very much.
We'll catch you when it dies down, because lots of people want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I'll catch you in a minute.
Yeah, okay.
But he lied to you. 5 years, no way.
I'm not going to last that long.
No, you'll be doing it a lot longer than that. So, Andy, looking at all the people that are here, it's a popular decision, and I really appreciate that you're looking happy, and I think you do a good job, because you spoke to me before.
Yeah.
You are passionate about it.
Yes, it's a great honour, and I'm very pleased to accept it, and I should still carry on as normal. And as I say, it's a great honour to accept it.
Right. Now, I joked with you earlier and said 5 years, but come on, you're going to do it as long as possible, aren't you?
Yeah, as long as possible. Yeah, we have our annual boot camp in October as normal, and we're still doing the Morse classes on a Thursday night. I do Morse classes on a Monday night as well with CW Ops. So I'm kept busy.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you are. But as I say, great you got the award, and great what you guys in Essex CW do for the hobby. So congratulations, and thank you very much from me.
Thank you very much for your time. Cheers.
Cheers. Down at the Canvey Island Rally, thoroughly enjoying myself, and I've just come across this lovely lady who's going to talk to me now. You're the RAIBC. Yeah, I always get the letters well and truly mixed up. Tell us who you are and what you do in the hobby and what you're here doing.
I'm Sandra Brown, M6 SDS, and I'm the secretary for the RAIBC.
Right, so the RAIBC, you deal with blind people or visually impaired people for the hobby, don't you?
We deal with all disabilities, so we deal with the blind, people that are dyslexic, mental health, so we just help generally people with a disability.
Well, that's good news, because I thought it was originally the people that were visually impaired. So you say you're obviously filtering a much wider group of people now, which is good. And as I say, I was accused by a friend of mine that we never come and see you, and truthfully, it was not intended, so I apologise it's taken nearly 15 years to do this, but great to see you.
Thank you.
So, how many people have wandered by and shown interest today on your stand?
I mean, a lot of people look at our PowerPoint presentation there because there's a lot of history of the RAIBC, and this year it's the RAIBC's 70th birthday.
Right, 70 years. Well, there's lots of nice things happening in this hobby at the moment with events, and it's good to hear you've got one as well. So, looking forward to the rest of the year. Where else were you likely to be in the UK?
So next week we're off to Nantwich for that radio rally, and then we possibly will be going to Dover. So yeah, we just go where, and we'll be definitely at the Hamfest, and we always attend the RSGB convention as well in October.
Yeah, it sounds like you do a lot of events that I do as well, and I'm sorry I haven't caught up with you before, but it looks like we'll be at Dover as well. So I'm hoping that's going to be a good one as well.
Yes, we hopefully this time we'll stay over, because sometimes Dean and I travel up on the morning, but we stayed over last night. It's just too much.
Yeah, I mean, with all these new speed restrictions going in here, there, and everywhere, and one thing and another, it's starting to make things that you then need to stay over rather than do it in one day.
Absolutely, because we've travelled up from Taunton, so we've come a long way.
A lot further than I did, because I only came from South London.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but listen, great to catch up with you. We'll obviously do this again other times when you've got more to tell us. If somebody wanted to find out more about you, where's the best place to look? On your website, I assume?
Absolutely, on the website, and people can join on the website as well. I would like to mention as well that a lot of people haven't heard of us, and we do a lot of the audio, so Dealing with Essex Hams, your friend, promotes the charity because we've got special permissions to use the licence manuals from the RSGB, and we have them on audio disc. So someone that's blind, dyslexic, we've got a young lad that's here today actually, and he's autistic, and we've got him through his foundation by, using those discs.
Yeah, well, it's good. And in truthfulness, and I probably shouldn't say this, I remember being given a copy a long time ago that it was out of date, but by somebody who you'd sent them to, and he was saying to me, Martin, listen to these are well worth. And I can honestly say that, if somebody does want to get into the hobby and they have a disability, like you're saying, your course notes are certainly well worth a go.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And we do actually, everyone now has to agree to a copyright notice so that they're strictly for the member and have to be used by the individual rather than used by a club to teach people that maybe aren't members of the RAIBC. So we encourage the individual to join. It's just £10 a year for someone that's disabled. And for that, they get the licence manuals. And we also do every month, so all the radio magazines, so Radcom, Practical Wireless, Sprat, CDX Digest, they're all available either to download from the website or they can receive a audio disc.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you, I might have had a copy once. I never used it for anything I shouldn't have done. But it was more a matter of very interesting to see what you did. And you've just reminded me.
Very professionally done, aren't they? They are very professionally done.
Yeah, very professionally done, because in the books there's pictures. So the person was reading what the text was and then describing the pictures, which is something that is equally helpful, I think.
Oh, absolutely. They even say whatever the colour of the front page is and what's on it. And yeah, so we've got special permissions from the RSGB to use this material, and they're all watermarked now as well. So they're not available to download. The license manual, sorry, they're not available to download. They're only available. They have to contact me, and I send them out.
Yeah, no problems at all. Listen, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you.
You look after yourself, and we'll catch you maybe at Dover.
Yep, hopefully we will. You take care.
Yeah, thank you. Young Stuart.
Absolutely. Welcome to the VMARS 25th anniversary stand. You're very honoured to be here, Martin, because we actually haven't quite got there, but we're in our 25th year now here at the Canvey Rally, which is the first rally of the year that VMARS take part in with their display stands. And as you can see, I've not only got my other half here, M3 TBI, we've got Pete Shepherd, G7 DXV, and Ian M0 OZS, or G0 OZS, should I say, our new on SEC. So we've got the stand laid out. We've had many visitors here today, and we've had a wonderful large gathering for the group photograph. And I must say that Canvey Rally has always done very well, courtesy of the South Essex Amateur Radio Society people. And on that note, if I can give a hint and tip to the wider amateur radio contingent amongst us, get to your rallies this year. We had COVID, we suffered badly, and lots of people have dropped off the radar. Lots of people have have got lack of commitment now. But if we can have a trawl around our local radio clubs and get people together, get these rallies sponsored and filled out at the doors, I think we can get ourselves back on track.
I think you're right, Stuart, because COVID did frighten a lot of people away. But as I've said many a time, we haven't managed to fix the common cold in 200 years. We haven't fixed the flu in 100 years. We ain't going to fix COVID overnight. So therefore, it's something, unfortunately, we've got to live with. Be safe, but we've got to get on with our lives. And this rally today has been quite well received, I think.
Absolutely. Well, actually, I went outside the doors at about 8 minutes to 10. I was looking for Ian, because Ian arrived slightly late this morning, no fault of his own, traffic problems. But the queue was massive. It's the largest queue I've ever seen. So that just goes to show that a bit of publicity, and of course within VMARS, as public relations officer, if I can big up and make announcements on behalf of other groups and societies that are putting on rallies and events, I'll gladly do it. And of course we have a regular footprint on 80 metres on 3.615 in the amplitude modulation mode, and we have quite a few of our members that gather there most days, and also not only AM on a Wednesday evening, we have an upper sideband there. Yes, I know, shock horror, upper sideband on 80 metres, but that is to allow a lot of our members who've got fairly contemporary ex-military equipment in particular that just has an upper sideband facility rather than lower. But there are some military radios to be had that have both upper and lower, as well as AM, FM, FSK, and whatever else you might find on these green gizmos. But indeed, rallies, I think we can put a bit more effort into them. But I'm pleased to say today that we've had a stream of visitors to the stand here, and lots of talk going on and chat about the type of equipment, and days gone by where they used to get a T1154 for 7 and 6 in Lyle Street in London, way before my time, I'm afraid. And just about that time, at the end of the 60s, I was actually joining the military, so I missed all that fun. But I'm glad to say that VMARS, one of the proudest things about VMARS is the fact that we, as individuals, not only collect, restore and operate the equipment, we are caretakers basically for this equipment. So it's 2024 now. I'm hoping that by 2030, 2035, there'll still be VMARS members, and we're 618 at the moment, Martin, 618. When you consider we started out with humble beginnings at our inaugural meeting at Bletchley Park, the home of Station X, where 39 people turned up, we've done extremely well, and we have a talent of information within VMARS and a wonderful website as well, www.vmars.org. You'll find VMARS, and don't hesitate to contact any one of the committee members if you want any help, hints or tips or advice. Any radio clubs have an issue with vintage equipment, approach VMARS and we'll only be too glad to help. And we've done this over the last 25 years. But as I say, our official anniversary comes up in May. Our AGM will come up in September. We're currently just about to decide on a prestigious venue to have that 25th AGM, and we're really looking forward to it.
Sounds good to me. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be around when you have your 25th anniversary, because I think Murphy's Law says it's going to happen when I'm out in Dayton. I'm out in the States for about 12 days. But it's no mean feat. 25 years is a good one, I would suggest.
Absolutely. Well, you're a lucky boy in going to Dayton, and I know a lot of our colleagues in the world of amateur radio have been to the Dayton Hamvention and also Friedrichshafen. Now, it's a couple of places that Alan and I have never been to, and I suppose that's testament to the fact we're so busy here in the UK doing various bits and bobs for VMARS and other organisations. Unfortunately, we also put our hat into the ring for Royal Signals Amateur Radio Society and the Royal Air Force Amateur Radio Society. But again, it's all good stuff because it swings and roundabouts, and you do get the occasional thank you, which is what that we need, just to say thanks, and we'll crack on regardless. But I must give tribute and pay tribute to my colleagues in VMARS and other organisations for all the extremely hard work that they do in keeping the vehicle rolling, because it's not a one-man job, it's a team event, spelt with a capital T, team event, and of course that's one thing I learned in the military.
Yes, certainly. Now, I'm going to embarrass her because she's taking a picture, but your good lady Anne is always very helpful to me and pops round to see me as much as you do, and we have great fun as a group of people that go around these podcasts go around these rallies doing these events, and I think long may we do so.
Martin, you're absolutely right. They do say that behind every man there's a good-looking woman, or something, words to that effect. But no, if it wasn't for people like Anne and our ex-YLs and YLs contributing to the hobby, and I'd like to see a lot more YLs come into the hobby as well. And I know that we've had a resurgence, especially with the input from South Essex Amateur Radio Society recently. I've seen quite a few young female operators and trainees, students learning amateur radio. So it's good. But Anne, of course, did her foundation licence many moons ago with the local radio club in the West Midlands in Stourbridge, and we're very thankful to that. I think it was 2 or 3 Saturdays she did the 4 Saturday mornings since she got her licence. So it's not beyond the wit of man or woman to do a course at your local radio club.
Certainly isn't. And as you say, if you've got instructors that are passionate, that passion comes across, and so that's really, really good on that one. But as I say, 25 years and a lot going on in 2024. Which other rallies are you thinking of doing this year?
Well, we normally have 4 or 5 on the radar that VMARS attend as an organisation. And I think some of the ones coming up quite soon, just off the top of my head, we'll of course do the Blackpool NASA Rally. That's always a very good event, and that covers people travelling down as far afield as Scotland, north of England, Northern Ireland. We're also going to be doing the Newark Hamfest, of course. That will be back after an absence of a couple of years, back at its normal venue at the Newark Showground. Looking forward to that one immensely. We do 1 or 2 other rallies where we don't actually have a VMARS footprint, but many VMARS members attend anyway. And the likes of those rallies are McMichael, Newbury, the Flight Refuelling Rally in Wimborne in Dorset. You name it, VMARS and its colleagues and members are involved. And a couple of people were just chatting earlier about the East Sussex Wireless Revival. There's another one. And also the Flixton Family Fun Day at the Flixton Air Museum. As I say, we're trying to organise our AGM as we speak. So hopefully that will be another prestigious venue. We have in the past actually been to Royal Signals Blandford, Royal Naval Air Station Yeovilton. We've been to Hack Green Nuclear Bunker. You name it, we've been there. And let's hope we can continue to do that, Martin. But we enjoy it.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you do. And some of these rallies you attend, I'm hoping to attend as well this year. So we will catch up with you more than once in a year, you know that. But it's always great to see you and Anne, Stuart, because you always make me very welcome. So, thanks. And just give us your website, just in case our listeners have forgotten.
Absolutely. It's www.vmars, that's vmars.org.uk. And you can gain access to the website. A mine of information on there. Lots of vintage films, reports, stories, access, I think, to some limited documents. Become a VMARS member. That's your best thing, and you can gain all of our archive, which of course we have an extensive archive, as you can imagine, Martin. When I think back, our very good late friend Ian Mant, G4WWX, he used to run vintage technical services in Liverpool. Sadly he passed on, but thankfully several weeks before he bequeathed his technical library to VMARS. And in those days we had 3 filing cabinets. We've now probably got about 10 filing cabinets full of documentation. Slow but sure, we're getting through them and scanning those documents into the rightful place on the system.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful, and you're doing a great job. Well, all I like to do, so I won't keep you any longer. I'll say 73 to you, and we'll see you at the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you, Martin. All the best to ICQ Podcast.
Well, it's the Canvey Island Rally is starting to close and it's thinning out a bit, but there's still interesting people to talk to. And I've just come round and hassled a nice gentleman. He's showing me his call sign, which is G7VFY. Even I make mistakes there. So come on, tell us your name, what you're doing here, and what you've been up to.
Yes, I'm G7VFY, Stephen, based in Barnet, North London. I'm here with a friend, and we're basically both got vast amounts of detritus to get rid of, so we're all trying to get rid of some things. I was speaking to you earlier about that I used to be a contributor to Southgate Radio Club's website. When I've first come across interesting stories online, I would send those to them, and now I've started doing the same thing but for the RSGB website, and I've come across a few interesting stories this week which I've sent through to them.
Yeah, that sounds interesting, and in fairness, it's quite hard to keep ferreting out things like what you do and to find interesting things that are going on, I would suggest.
It can be a bit of a challenge, but I have multiple interests. Other than amateur radio, and I'm not really very active on the air, I like to sit on the side and listen. But my other interest is collecting and playing around with vintage computers. So the story I sent through to the RSGB this week was about a amateur radio project to put FT8 on a Commodore Amiga, which is basically a 40-year-old computer, and use it for moon bounce. So that should be coming out soon, I hope. I often come across, weirdy stories. It's like, okay, this computer's 3, 4, 5 decades old. Let's see if we can get it to do something it was never originally designed to. I have a cartridge from my Commodore 64 that does RTTY and Morse decode. I've done packet radio on my Amigas, and it's fun because it's a bit like the sort of the QRP of computing. Yes, they're not very powerful, and they're not very reliable, and they need tender loving care to get working and stay working, but that's half the challenge, really. So cause there's quite a bit of overlap. A lot of people from the amateur radio community were heavily involved in computing in the early days. They used to build kit computers or completely scratch build. So you find that a lot of radio hams have got interesting vintage tech sitting in their lofts.
You talk about that and you've hit a sweet spot with me. I actually, sitting at home, have a couple of Apple IIs, an Apple II Euro and an Apple IIe, and with disk drives, cards, all sorts of things. And you were talking about us in the early days. Well, I worked doing local area networks on Apple IIs before the IBM PC came out.
That would have been Omninet. That would have been Omninet on the Apple II, probably, or the Corvus Omninet.
No, not quite. It was. I worked for a part of Rank Xerox, which was called Zynar, and we made our own network cards, and we networked all these computers on 16-way ribbon cable up to about 300 feet, I think, from memory. Long time ago, we had everything you've got today in networking, and it was interesting, but it was great. It was early technology and great fun in them days. I also came across the other day when I was digging in the junk room, let's put it that way, I came across a TNC I forgot I had.
Oh, right. A Tiny 2 or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still perfectly usable. There are people out there using packet. I've often thought about hooking up my sort of Commodore 64 or my Amiga up to a LoRa board and seeing if we can get it to do anything. It won't do very fast data because the Commodore 64 doesn't have a proper serial port, so you're talking about like 1200 baud or something like that. But it's not the case of being practical. It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's great to experiment with. Use a Tandy Model 100, little tiny battery-powered laptop that runs for a week on 4 AA batteries. You can do packet on it. You can do RTTY. It's pointless, but it's fun.
Yeah, well, you say it's pointless, but it's not pointless. It's keeping our brains active, and in many ways, at some point in time, I've got to dispose of my apples because I'm never going to use them. However, it's just too good to be got or just dumped or whatever, because, I've got the full Monty with software and all sorts of stuff, but it was of a time when... many, many moons ago, it was a time when that was what we did.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the radio amateurs were the early adopters because most machines were either kits or partial kits. They had to be built from scratch, and you had to have electronic skills, and you needed a multimeter and an oscilloscope, and you needed to know what you're doing. And it was writing code in machine code. It wasn't easy to do, but it was a technical challenge. I mean, a lot of radio hams started off with like NASCOMs or UK 101s or ELFs, and a lot of guys are still tinkering about with them. I've got 3 UK 101s at home in various states of disrepair, which need attention. It's another project on the back burner, but it's fun,
Yeah, these things come out of a bit of fun when you've got something else to do, or there's not a lot on the telly, or you don't want to watch The Sound of Music for the 500th time on a Christmas day.
Or your friend shows you his smartphone and shows you a version of Mary Poppins voiced by Arnold Schwarzenegger, or some other AI horror.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a quick story, and this is probably me being over too much on this, but as I told you, I worked on Apple IIs back in the early 80s, and I went all the way to Birmingham to do a service call on a system in Birmingham. Now, I live in South London, so it's a good 150 miles-ish there. And my service kit used to stay off.
That's me.
Ah, right. So my service kit used to stay off the car overnight and go back on first thing in the morning. And I got to Birmingham one day, and most of the Apple IIs didn't have disk drives, floppy disk drives, because they were on the network, so you didn't need it. So there we are in Birmingham. I've just arrived with a dead computer, and or with a fault. So I take my service disk drive, floppy disk drive controller, and disk drive, and I plug it into this machine, and I switch it on, and I hear bang, 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 bang from the disk drive.
Oh dear, yeah, that used to happen.
Yeah, seriously, I was having a moment. So I took it apart, because I'm like 150 miles from the depot. So I take it apart, and as I take it apart, a Lego man falls out. When I got home, I said to my eldest son, Colin, who's also an amateur now, I said, "Did you lose a Lego man?" He said, "Yeah, he went in the disk drive and he wouldn't come out." So, but no, over the days you get into all sorts of trouble like that.
Absolutely, yes.
But,
and still do.
Yeah. But interesting, you're still interested in the old stuff, and
well, it was my I grew up with it. I was very lucky in that I had a Saturday job working for a small local computer shop in North London, and I was there from 1979 to 1992, and I started off. Well, the shop was a Commodore dealer, and then it did the ACT Sirius one, and then we did the Apricot and the IBM PC, and so basically, as the technology moved on, we did more updated, more things. So yeah, I've been around for a very long time.
Well, I think I'm a little bit older than you, because I was the 156th engineer to be warranty trained on IBM PCs in the UK.
I've still got my IBM certificates at home, my training certificates, IBM Token Ring, IBM PC LAN program, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I remember all that, and Token Ring's a thing you don't see anymore. It lasted longer in retail than anywhere else, but it kind of died off. But quite a good system all along the way.
Yeah, it was a great sort of self-healing network. As soon as you turn the computer on, it would set the power from the network card, would actually connect the computer to the network, and then when you switched off again, it would disconnect it. So sort of self-healing, which was pretty sophisticated for the time.
Oh yeah. So all being fun. Well, Stephen, I've kept you a little while. I'm not going to keep you much longer, because it looks like everybody's packing up now, and you'll obviously need to get your gear packed away. But great chatting to you. Keep enjoying your hobby, and keep playing with those old computers.
I will do.
Lastly, and I must apologise profusely to Simon Wilton, who I interviewed. For some reason, Simon, the interview didn't record. My apologies. 100%. Guys, I've spoke to Simon a number of times via A3SII when he lived in Canada. He's back in the UK as G7HCD, and certainly a wealth of knowledge. A very clued up guys, our Simon, and I'm sure that the guys in Essex are really pleased to have you back, Simon. I saw a number of people wander by and pick your brains and do the bits and pieces. My apologies, Simon, for not failing to get that interview, and to our listeners. We'll catch up again soon. Well, that was partly my fault, because on the day of the rally, I trapped a nerve in my back and I was wandering around like a zombie a little bit. No excuses. Hopefully you got the some good information from this podcast feature, this episode. And what a great rally. Looking forward to it again next year.
The ICQ Podcast Digital Voice Talk Group. Your digital home away from home. Worldwide.
Well, everybody, I really hope you enjoyed our features episode where, we got to enjoy the delights of the Canvey Island Rally, and it was great to be kindly welcomed there by the organisers and our first trip out and about in 2024. And I really hope you enjoyed, the flavour of that rally, and how these things are getting back up and running again and back to some sort of sense of normality. So it's going to be great to hear. Now, as always, we love to get your feedback on the ICQ podcast, and we got a mail from Chuck, VK2 Sierra Sierra, and Chuck tells us he was listening to episode 416 where we were discussing how ham radio can assist in emergencies. A few years back, he went out with his club into the Simpson Desert, which is in Central Australia, on an outback expedition. On the way back, they came across a vehicle accident where an older gentleman driver sustained a head injury and a rather nasty cut to his arm. Now, luckily, they had a first aider with them, and as they worked for the fire brigade, and he basically was assisting in giving some treatment. There was also a passing motorist who was a nurse. So we got everything coming together nicely here, where we got the first aiders sort of tipping up. But of course, the important part here is the group made an emergency call on 14 metres as they were on a desert, and there was no other possible forms of communication. They received a reply from a VK4 in Brisbane, and he contacted emergency services. And from there, acts as a relay station to give information between the desert and emergency services in Brisbane. The Flying Doctor, the Royal Flying Doctor Service, then scoped out the area for a suitable landing, and they from feedback from the guys, actually at the accident there, but unfortunately they couldn't find an area clear enough. So a road ambulance was sent instead 130 kilometres away. My God, it shows you how big Australia is. Patient was looking poorly, but they were able to thankfully keep the patient going nicely until the ambulance arrived. The professionals took over, and the good news on this one is that he got to hospital, and it was all a positive outcome on that there. So ham radio to the rescue. Without ham radio, they wouldn't have been able to potentially get the the flying doctor or even the ambulance to the location. To assist the gentleman. So Chuck says also, thanks very much for your efforts on the podcast, and he looks forward to each and every episode. So thanks up there, Chuck, for that story there of again a great story there of how not only human beings helping each other out, but how ham radio came to their aid, because without ham radio, it would have been very difficult for that gentleman to get the assistance he needed.
Yeah, Colin, great idea on that one, and lovely story. Does prove that our hobby is useful in other things. So, thanks, Chuck. Most appreciated you sent the feedback in.
Yeah, we'll do that. You can send your feedback in by going to icqpodcast.com, and there's a feedback section there, or drop us a line on the relevant social medias. We'll certainly love to hear your stories and what's going on, etc., and your feedback on your ICQ podcast. While you're at icqpodcast.com, you can do what our monthly annual subscription donors do for us, and that's show some value of what you get from the show and help us out with our running costs and help us pay our way by either setting up a subscription donation or a one-off donation to help us out. Valentine's Day's coming up, guys, so I say show some love for your ICQ podcast team, and I say whatever you send our way goes into continuing to improve your ICQ podcast. So as I say, it's a great way of helping us out and keeping the momentum going of what we've been doing here for the last 400 and now 23 episodes. So it'll be great to see you from there. We'd like to thank our wonderful colleagues, Chris Howard, Mike Zero, Tango Charlie Hotel, Martin, Mike Zero, Sierra Golf Lima, Frank, K4, Foxtrot Mike Hotel, Bill, Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, and Leslie, Golf Zero, Charlie India Bravo, for taking part in the News Roundtable. Many thanks for your views and insights on what's been going on in the hobby in the last couple of weeks. And I say that just about wraps up everything, apart from the most important thing we have to do now, which is to look after Mrs. B and find a nice treat for her to go along with a cup of tea, I would say, Dad.
We certainly will in a minute, Colin, and find her a nice cup of tea. But one thing I would like to say, guys, is we do try and attend as many rallies as we get invited to. I will openly admit to you, this comes out of our own pocket, and sometimes we travel hundreds of miles round trip. So I'm apologising in advance. We can't do everyone, and not that probably everybody wants to see us. But just bear in mind, if you ask us and we can't make it, this is not a get at you. It's beginning to become just a pure financial decision which rallies we go to. But we love to support the hobby. So just a quick one. Right now, I'm going to go and make that Mrs. B that cup of tea, find that chocolate biscuit, and we're going to put her feet up and enjoy the rest of the day. So back to you, Colin.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I say thanks everybody for your support, and I say we'll catch you again in a fortnight's time. 73's all.
Yeah, 73.